Welcome to May, and this is another edition of the Candid Connection. This month, we'll be taking a look at what's been happening in Lansing around issues affecting cancer patients, including oral chemotherapy fairness, along with things happening with the budget. It's budget season, so budgets are starting to move again. We're going to take a look at things that are happening on a federal level, including some exciting announcements that came out of the president's address to Congress. We'll also be reviewing Cancer Action Week. That's right. Last month, we finished Cancer Action Week, and so Ashley will be giving us a little bit of a debrief of that. We're also excited to welcome Dr. Elisabeth Heath from Karmanos Cancer Institute and Wayne State University, along with Congressman Fred Upton. I'm Andrew Sheppers, along with my co-host, Ashley Wakefield. This is the Candid Connection. Well, Ashley, it's May. Welcome back. Holy crow! We made it, and we survived. We survived Cancer Action Week.
We did, and I would help if I was unmuted. Live show right here. No, we had a very successful Cancer Action Week, and boy, did it, give a highlight to April. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, no, me too. And I think we made a huge impact. And so I think, we've got a lot on the show today. So why don't we kind of get right in it and talk about our state updates? And so, our two big campaigns we've been working on are around oral chemotherapy fairness and funding tobacco prevention. And we really made a lot of traction through our Cancer Action Week. But we also found out some key information in terms of what's going to be happening with our oral chemo bill, haven't we?
Yeah, certainly. Our volunteers certainly showed up and were well prepared and really made, the ask of, like you mentioned, tobacco funding and our oral anti-cancer medication fairness legislation. So basically, by the end of that day, we had heard, I think, the most immediate feedback was that they had put a placeholder in the Senate budget for our tobacco ask of $200,000 for the tobacco quit line, which was such a great victory, not only for ACS Can and what we've been working on, but also our volunteers, just to see their impact unfold right before them. And then in kind of those conversations and bringing oral anti-cancer medication fairness legislation to the forefront of lawmakers' minds, which ultimately is our main focus as a grassroots organization, and when volunteers do their good work, is we kept hearing that they are actually going to have a hearing in the Senate.
I know, it's super exciting.
Yes. And, there's some things that the Senate wants to work on, but they are very well aware of the importance of, this legislation and how impassioned we all are to see this through to the end and to the finish line. And boy, it's about time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so a lot of the intel we got out about Cancer Action Week with our meetings is that we found out that, this bill, along with many others that were in the healthcare package that came out from the House, is slated to be addressed sometime in the fall. So it'll be exciting to see, that brought up and hopefully some action for the first time in quite a while.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think we already saw a huge victory with seeing it pass the House for the first time ever. We know that it has gotten through the Senate. So certainly the Senate has its own tricks, and things that we need to navigate, maybe some hurdles, but we've been down this road in the Senate. And so I feel like the path, to see this successful is at least emerging, and we can just take the next right step to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Yep. Well, and talking about the right direction, let's kind of take a few minutes to talk about our appropriations ask, and knowing that, Michigan really continues to stay in what the Truth Initiative calls Tobacco Nation, where it's extremely high utilizer of tobacco products here. Where we look at our Medicaid population, over 40% of our Medicaid population is using a tobacco product, which is extremely high. But yet our funding has continued to decrease. And so where we were at 4.7 million at one time, the state only puts in 1.65 million to do any type of tobacco prevention work. And we're finding now that we're coming up short in terms of being able to have enough funds to run a quit line, aren't we?
Yeah, and that's the interesting part about all this is that quit line. And I think sometimes with a lot of services, we just, they're there. And so, people utilize them, but there is this back working element to keep that line open, to keep these services available. And here in the state of Michigan, in short, the funding is only there for 10 months out of the year. And so because we follow a fiscal year, August and September, most times the department was finding themselves scrambling to keep it available. And I don't know about you, but that's a time of year where a lot of, people want to reset. They want to start new things. It's like you're going into a new season. And that's a really important time of year to make that available for those who are looking to get some resources for quitting smoking and tobacco products.
No, absolutely. And so I think one of the great things about our ask, which is for $200,000 to help continue to fund that program, it's going to expand services as well. So we're looking at over 1,500 people having access. And I think one of the real big other points about this is that we're also talking about, close to 30 moms to be essentially having access to some of these services, and also looking at over 2,300 those who are dealing with behavioral health issues. I mean, I think there's a real big veil on that of those who are facing issues in the behavioral health space really find themselves drawn to using tobacco products. And so this is a great opportunity to help those that truly need the help.
Yeah, certainly. And I think there's even been some conversation about modernizing, the quit line to tailor some resources for a younger audience and a more relevant crowd. I mean, all of us right now are, probably our phones are sitting right next to us. And a lot of our communication, young and old, happens via text message or other means. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity in this $200,000 to make a really wide sweeping impact in, tobacco cessation and getting people off of tobacco.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And knowing that this is one of the most preventable things that we can do to help folks away from cancer, this is just a no-brainer. And so, hopefully we can get this through. But, budgets are now on the move during May, and we'll have the revenue estimating conference this month. And so we'll see where we're at in terms of how much funding is going to be available. But as we talk about cancer, the president offered his address to Congress last month and really talked about some new exciting things on the horizon, and also offering his statement of essentially, looking to find those cures for cancer. Gosh, what an exciting and uplifting speech for those facing cancer, and really new exciting things, talking about what he called ARPA-H. And so really doing advanced research and having an agency to do that. God, what just an exciting time to be in DC and working on cancer, right?
Yeah, certainly. And, I think it was just so encouraging to hear what we as advocates say all the time, that cancer policy has to be at the forefront. This is affecting too many people. And so to hear President Biden, and I quote, say, "I can't think of no more worthy investment, nothing more bipartisan. So let's end cancer as we know it." I think every ACS Can advocate, participating physician, I mean, you name it, gave a big standing ovation right in their living room to that statement. So there is a lot of encouragement, especially in the lines of research funding. I know that we've talked about that before, but due to the pandemic, in large part, a lot of those trials and research have really, I don't want to say taken a backseat, but kind of taken a backseat, or at least, struggled. And so we have been advocating with Congress for an increase in the NIH NCI budget to basically jumpstart trials. And so when you have, the leader, President Biden, make that a priority in his speech, it again gives us a pathway to have a furthering conversation about, now, what does that mean? So if you want to jump on board, which I think most of us can jump on board to ending cancer as we know it, given that most of us have a story around cancer or even a loss, it just gave us the backing, if you will, to say, well, let me share this with you. We actually have a plan to make a big impact and do as you say.
Yeah, no, and I think that this is a great show to bring this up because we've got a couple of great guests today. We've got Dr. Elisabeth Heath, who is down in Karmanos, and she's doing groundbreaking research, leading a great team down there. And so it'll be interesting to get her take, but also Congressman Fred Upton, who has been a huge supporter of research funding, had his 21st Century Cures legislation that he worked with Congresswoman to get in terms of bringing new therapies and treatments faster to market. So I'm excited to get their viewpoint in terms of what that speech means and kind of, hopefully where we can go here within the next, months to years in terms of trying to find some of those breakthrough treatments.
Yeah, certainly. Perspective is wide in this field, and being able to hear from the experts in all the different avenues that cancer is being fought on is so valuable. Not only, Andrew, to you and I as in the work that we do, but also for our advocates and our volunteers to hear, just because sometimes you can see what's right in front of you and taking the next action. I know we talk a lot about that on this show of like, here's the next step, here's the next thing that you can do to help. But this really is a battle being fought on multiple fronts.
Yeah. Yep. So for those that are interested in what's going on and whatnot, we say, feel free to head to our website. You can find all the information there, how you can take some action, take next steps. Head to fightcancer.org/MI to get all of that information in terms of issues we're working on a state and federal level. So I don't know if listeners really know what our April was really all about, but this was our marquee #1 biggest event that we do all year, Cancer Action Week, and we pulled it off. How did we do it, Ashley? How did it happen?
Well, you know what? We have tremendous volunteers and advocates who trust us to give them the information, and then they just go and they do. So we had almost 90 participants taking place in about 73 meetings with lawmakers that all happened on one day. So it was really a tremendous feat, but you know what? It was flawless. I mean, really, they showed up, they were prepared, short of us providing some materials so that everyone is on the same page. What really made a huge impact is that those advocates and those volunteers said, I'm going to take this, I'm going to be prepared, I'm going to go into my meeting, and I'm not going to be afraid to advocate and ask on behalf of my, fellow cancer patients, caregivers, and Michiganders who are facing or will face this disease. Yeah. And like we talked about earlier in the broadcast, was very successful in one day of meetings of having a unified voice. So I'm really proud of all those that participated and did their best and showed up with excellence. It really made an impact.
Absolutely. And I think What listeners and viewers may not know is that when it comes to our Cancer Action Week, you and I spend a lot of time in the background, and we don't really have the opportunity to be a part of those meetings. And but over the past 2 years, with everything being virtual, we've had the opportunity to take some of those meetings with our volunteers, and I got to tell you, I'm absolutely floored just how confident they feel, how prepared they are when they meet with their lawmakers, and they really come in with this sense and urgency of that. This is something we need to do. Yet, we want to make sure that we can provide you with all of the information to make that happen. And, I'm just blown away. I mean,
Yeah.
I just sit in the background. Normally, I'm the guy that has to be out in front all the time. I sit in the background and I let them talk, and I get to I get to speak at the end and go, "Do you have any other questions?" and it's absolutely awesome. And
Yeah.
and so, but I think it's the caliber of those that we have engaged here in Michigan, really shows their commitment to the mission, but also shows their commitment against against this fight against cancer, for this
Mhm.
fight against cancer. And so, just awesomely taken back, and we give out awards every year. And so we did a Lawmaker year of the Year award, which is something we haven't done in probably like 3 to 4 years now. But Senator Wayne Schmidt out of Traverse City was awarded our Lawmaker of the Year for really his work in terms of ensuring that our kids are getting access to healthy foods in their schools by creating a partnership between local growers within the state of Michigan and school districts, providing more funding for them to go buy local, so bringing in fresh fruits and vegetables, but also helping to add an educational component on that as well. So understanding that when you're sitting there going through the line, maybe passing on the bag of Doritos and taking, the fresh apple that was grown in an orchard maybe 20 miles away from the school district, or maybe taking the group of grapes that were grown, over on the west side of Michigan or whatnot, but really focusing on some of those more healthier lifestyles that it's going to be invaluable for kids today, but I think for their parents as well moving forward.
Yeah, it was a really well-deserved award for him.
So we're excited about that, but we also gave away a Volunteer of the Year and what we call our Excalibur Award to highlight some volunteers a volunteer that had done some great work. I know you're more involved in that, Ashley, so why don't you fill us in on who our awardees were this year?
Yeah, certainly. Let me just preface it with this. As we've been talking about, it's hard to choose. We have an incredible group of people. The Volunteer of the Year award is usually awarded to someone who's just really shown to have their hand in everything. They're always saying yes, advancing the mission, committed to what we do in all facets. And so she is not a stranger to ACS or ACS Can. That was Heidi Varner this year, was a Volunteer of the Year. She's the ACT lead in the 4th Congressional District. So well deserved, especially in a very tough year of 2020. And then as it kind of morphs into 2021, she didn't skip a beat, stepped up in any crazy way that I asked her to. And so it was quite an accomplishment. And then our Excalibur Award is just another award where we just see a standout advocate. Simply put, it can mean a lot of things, from a long time of service and commitment to ACS Can. And in this case, we actually awarded it to a new advocate in our ranks, and simply because his mission to expand his impact. He was involved in a lot of ACS initiatives for a long time, and then had decided to grow up new leaders in his family and around him, and stretch himself. And so ever since he jumped in, he again has said yes. He's on every call and he's a part of everything we ask him to, and is just really making a huge impact. And that was Dale Risden out of the 7th Congressional District. So we couldn't be more proud of our awardees, but as this team as a whole.
Yeah, no, it's well deserved. And you're absolutely right. I mean, we could give the Volunteer of the Year award away to everyone, just based on the actions that they take and how engaged they are in our fight here. But I think overall a great week.
Yeah.
A lot of highlights, a lot of ups, a lot of celebrations, and so. But we're already starting to think about 2022, aren't we?
You know what? That's right. And we're always looking forward. We can have a victory, we can celebrate that victory, but the work isn't done. And I think we're all understanding of what that work is, of the getting to a world without cancer. And so we're not going to stop until we get there. And so again, kind of like we talked about earlier, just that connection to everything from cancer research to policy and what will come in the fall. We're looking forward to those.
Yep. So, well, from that, I mean, we're talking about extraordinary folks and efforts. I want to talk about now an extraordinary partnership that's really kind of formed here with ACS CAN. And as you can see here down the bottom of our screen, or those listening, our relationship with Karmanos and McLaren. And so, this was really born out of I think working all together from ACS CAN and Karmanos, and so we're excited today from somebody who could probably get our Volunteer of the Year award as well. But Dr. Heath is joining us from Karmanos, and she's the leader of their genitourinary multidisciplinary team, and as the Associate Center Director for Transitional Sciences, as well as the Hartman Endowed Chair for Prostate Cancer Research at Karmanos. She's engaged in many different activities, including being a member of a committee on the American Society of Clinical Oncology, principal investigator for the Department of Defense, in their Prostate Clinical Trials Cancer Consortium program, among many other things. But I think most importantly, Dr. Heath is a big advocate of ACS CAN and ACS, and really got excited about this opportunity. And so we're excited to have her on today. Dr. Heath, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Andrew and Ashley. I'm sitting here listening to you both and so inspired with everything ACS CAN is doing, but with both of you, you really educate us on what's happening. There's so much going on in the world at any one time. It's hard to know what's happening in your own backyard. So I think that's part of the reason why this partnership is so awesome, because we're here with you in your backyard, and that's true throughout the whole state of Michigan. But what you guys do to keep Michiganders healthy, I think, is really what I'm most excited about.
Oh, well, we're definitely excited about that as well. And I know, Dr. Heath, you and I have worked together through the past several years, whether it's been at the Cancer Consortium or working in different venues or attending at different events. And so, you had mentioned about providing information in terms of why we're a great partner, but what else kind of brought you to the table, or really kind of piqued your interest in terms of being engaged with us here on doing a podcast, which is something that really you're not seeing a lot of around the country right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the pandemic has definitely kind of opened our eyes to some of the limitations of how we get the word out.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've all been there with the magical buses and trips to all the right places, all wonderful camaraderie. But, in the middle of a pandemic, the work must go on. And we know just, nationally, internationally, podcasts are really a terrific way to get the message out. And, just like I'm sitting here listening to both of you, it is an easy listen. And if you can just tune in to get an update, without doing much. You could be listening to us while you're gardening or puttering around the house or getting the mail or running groceries. But you're really educating yourself on a topic that's just so important. So I think that opportunity of how to get the word out is what excited me. Plus, we love you guys at ACS and ACS Can, because like you said, fight cancer, right? You get everybody together to fight together in a unified way. So yay.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And I think it's, we're all here because we all have a story, right? And so it all is a personal connection in some way, shape, or form. And as we talked about earlier, just the amount of meetings and the amount of advocates we had working last week, we were all excited about the work that we accomplished, essentially knowing that we're going to have a hearing for oral chemo now in the fall, and looking to add some of those dollars into our state budget to fight tobacco. But you, as a clinician, being on the front line, actually treating and trying to find new cures and new treatments for cancer, how is the work that our volunteers did last week and maybe continue to do either here in Michigan or in DC kind of really affect your life in terms of what you're doing day in and day out in terms of seeing patients?
Yeah, I got to tell you, those are the folks that keep it real. Many times in these organizations, whether you're at university or community-based, you get into what you do, which is you treat the patients, but you sometimes can lose sight of what's really meaningful. Those folks you treat live with family members and caregivers, and they live in a community, and that community is within other communities. So the ripple effect is humongous. And with the volunteers and advocates that really keep us real to say, look, yes, you have all these wonderful tools in your toolkit to help patients, but to keep it going, to keep it more innovative, to keep it more cutting edge, you're going to need some dollars and support. And that's where they stand up and really help. I think it also provides an opportunity for those who want to help but don't know how. The number of times I hear, family members who come in or on the phone say, well, what can I do? Yeah. Other than bringing my parent or my loved one back and forth, what can I do? And the answer is continue the fight, because to get these new medications and new technology available for the general public, it takes all of us to make that happen.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I know in my time here at ACS, we've spent a lot of talking about, research funding, talking about initiatives on a federal level, like the 21st Century Cures Act. And that kind of leads a great segue. I mean, later on in our show, we're going to have Congressman Fred Upton, who was the leader of that initiative. And also, hearing rumors that he may be doing a 2.0 version. But, a lot of the other exciting things that we talked about happening out of the president's speech, what impact has Congressman Upton had on research funding overall, and what is your hope for him kind of moving forward to maybe be a champion for Michigan or champion some more research funding to kind of help us maybe come with some of those breakthrough treatments or cures?
Yeah, I think Congressman Upton, he's a visionary. I mean, he was really a leader before anybody else figured out that how you make this difference is to have those who can affect change, be it through policy or through advocacy on their own front. He was a visionary with that before it was kind of the cool thing to do.
Yeah.
Whether it's cool or not, whether it's a bipartisan issue or not, cancer doesn't care. Cancer doesn't care it's COVID. Cancer doesn't care what your political affiliation is. Cancer just does what cancer wants to do. And everyone, I think, on this podcast can attest to that. What the goal is for folks like Congressman Upton is to create more like him who do champion the issue of, additional funding. Anytime there's a focus for, hey, we've got extra dollars to tackle a problem, the answer is yes, thank you. And when can we start? There's no shortage of wonderful research ideas out there. I mean, we're excited in the research field. It isn't just, oh, we're going to have an academic career. It's this is horrible stuff. How do we get rid of it? Please put me out of a job. I would really like to be out of this job.
Yeah,
because that would mean we've all succeeded in the fight.
I think we all would.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, well, as we look ahead, I think just simply, how can we help? What is it that we can bring to the table, or what resources do you need as a researcher, and or somebody seeing patients on the front line that you need today, that simply you just can't seem to either access or get your hands on, or just are losing ground?
Yeah, I got to tell you that I think especially ACS and ACS Can have done a really tremendous job with the education piece. The resources there are available to many and all people. I think it's just getting the word out of how to get access to that. As you know, in many underserved communities, as defined by a whole multitude of things, it's just not race and ethnicity, it's geography, it's economics, it's everything. The idea is that, those who need probably don't have as much access. That's where podcasts are helpful, because there is nothing physical that you need other than some sort of tool to download us, or, listen on the phone or stream in that sense. But the fact that you're still with us, I think, is the most critical, because the information changes so much.
Yeah.
And what you all do well is to translate it into layman's terms. Those of us in science and research, we tend to have way overinflated language of what does that mean? And what you need is just the regular version of, this is really what it means, and this is how it impacts you. And when you have access to those who have been through it or are just familiar with it, talking and or reading about that in a manner that is, clear and easy to understand, that's what you guys do best. And we need to continue that.
Well, absolutely. We are here and ready and raring to go. And even our ACS partners as well, do a great job in terms of providing that information within their communities. But also, putting together programs like Research Hers, or to focus on female researchers, or looking at other programs like, Relay and Strides are still programs that are strong. And so, how have those programs maybe impacted the work that you do as well? I know this Research Hers program is new. It's 4 to 5 years old, but I think a wonderful initiative that ACS picked up on. How does this impact your work?
I have to tell you, that's one of the most favorite initiatives and campaigns that I have, that you guys have. Part of it is because it shines a big spotlight on a problem that exists and has been existing, which is, the role of women scientists and physicians are not as great as it should be. If we are part of the community that we're all living in, the funding and sort of that kind of support to enable women researchers to succeed is not where it should be. And so this Research Hers campaign is so important. And, I am personally involved, not for myself, but my youngest daughter was a junior ambassador. And Katie really learned a lot in that role by sharing the message to her peers. And let's face it, Andrew and Ashley, without the next generation kicking in and recognizing we have a fight, and it's not just how it affects their family member, but they can do something about the fight. I think that was probably one of the most gratifying thing that I saw with this campaign. I had colleagues also at work that supported this initiative, and they were able to raise funds as well. But it's a nice way to ask friends and family who want to help. I know when Katie was doing her campaign, she was not shy. She went to every person to say, I feel strongly that women researchers who are trying to make an impact on cancer need support. What can you do? And I'll tell you where you guys were phenomenal. You didn't ask these young people and or the other ambassadors to figure it out. You had this great toolkit. You basically, just like what you did in Cancer Action Week, you enabled folks to do it because you prepared the materials so that they can tweak it and amend it to those they really want to give it to. But that to me is half the work, because sometimes you're not sure how to ask. And let's face it, in the middle of a pandemic or any time, it's just hard to ask and do fundraising.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, if folks are looking for more information, head to cancer.org. You can find great information on researchers, relays and strides, and our other programs that we have out there, Gold Together. But yeah, head to cancer.org to find out more information there. One last question before we go. May means summer, and I want you to know Ashley and I are big foodies. Or maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the big foodie, but I love grilling out. Absolutely love grilling. And so, what's your favorite your favorite grilling meal? That's something you really just look forward to putting on the grill.
Well, the good part is I'm never allowed to touch the grill because my husband would completely freak out that his Traeger is being touched. But we love salmon. That's what we look forward to.
Nice salmon. No, my family got me a pizza oven that goes on the grill, and so pizza. Yes. So, but yeah. Well, Dr. Heath, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking that time out of what must be an extremely busy schedule. But we appreciate you at least taking a few minutes to join us today.
Thank you, Andrew and Ashley, and keep up the great work.
Hey, we will. So, so we're going to take a quick break here, and joining us in just a minute after our break on the other side will be Congressman Fred Upton.
At Karmanos, we specialize in providing cancer care that you can't get anywhere else. Because we're home to one of the largest clinical trials programs in the country, only Karmanos can give you access to more than 250 of the most innovative and promising cancer treatments available. And with locations across Michigan and virtual visits, we offer easy and safe access to the expertise and guidance of your cancer team. We do all of this for one reason: to give you your best chance.
Welcome back. Well, we're excited for our next guest today. He proudly serves Michigan's 6th Congressional District, really supporting those common sense values of Southwest Michigan, but also a champion in Congress in D.C. for finding bipartisan solutions, as he's the vice chair for the House Problem Solvers Caucus. From 2010 to 2016, he was extremely influential in Congress and still is today, but served as the chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, which deals with issues around Medicare and Medicaid, issues which are dear to our hearts. Where then today he serves as the top Republican on the Energy Subcommittee on that major committee. One real big accomplishment that we were really excited about, in 2014, he worked with his colleague from Colorado, Representative Deanna DeGette, to create the 21st Century's Cure Initiative, which helped bring treatments and devices to market sooner for folks that were facing, any type of disease or condition. And so, we're really excited today to welcome Congressman Fred Upton to the show. Fred, how are you today? Thanks for joining us.
Well, good morning. I'm sorry that the video for the podcast didn't work, but I'm delighted to join you on the hard line. And clearly, you guys have a good audience, and I know that as you interviewed some of my colleagues in the past, it's gone real well, and I'm excited to be with you today.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time, which is, I'm sure, quite a busy time in DC. And so, and we know that, healthcare has been one of the big major issues that Congress has been working on, just not in this term, but in terms before. And so, when we look at healthcare and kind of look at the horizon, what do you feel is going to be the biggest healthcare issue that Congress will be facing here in the coming term?
Well, a couple things. First, and you referenced this in my introduction, President Obama, literally the last bill that he signed into law back in 2016 was 21st Century Cures, which was a major bipartisan bill, passed 392 to 26 in the House. I was the lead as we took 3 years to get it done. But what it did was it expedited the approval of drugs and devices by the FDA. More resources for the FDA, more resources for the NIH, National Institute of Health, so we could go and find a cure for all these diseases. That was the big issue. And of course, as you talk about today, it's COVID. And frankly, we would not have the vaccine, maybe even today, had we not passed 21st Century Cures back in 2016. Because that approval then allowed the emergency use authorizations that were used by Moderna, by Pfizer, by Johnson & Johnson to actually be able to produce these millions of doses prior to their approval. And, for Pfizer, which is in my district over here in Southwest Michigan, their chairman was terrific. And he said, we're going to spend whatever it takes to get it done. And of course, we remember that Sunday afternoon when those trucks rolled out of their Portage, Michigan facility, and it was like a moon launch. We were so excited that it happened. So as you talk about today, COVID is still plaguing us. No, it wasn't over by Easter last year. It wasn't over by Easter this year. We know that with these vaccines, even though they're 95% effective, you're going to need a booster. This is not like the polio shot, one and done. It'll be like the flu vaccine for probably a number of years. We're going to have to get that booster. And because we know in the last year, we've seen all these variants. I mean, right now we're hearing about a double Indian variant from India, but we've got the UK variant. We got the South African variant. We got all the, literally 24 variants. So that vaccine that was approved by the FDA last year, they didn't know about these variants. So like the flu vaccine, the next booster shot, and by the way, it's likely that you're going to need a booster, even if you had that Pfizer or Moderna shot earlier this year. They think that it's only going to last for 6 or 8 months. So that if you got it early this year, you're going to need another one by fall. Chances are that booster is going to be a little bit different. That third shot is going to be a little bit different than it was. And so we need to continue the research. We need to continue the development. Obviously, you need the FDA approval. And remember, the trials, 30,000 people in a trial. So that's, this issue is not going away. We need the resources. We need the funds to do this. But you got the other diseases as well. I mean, cancer and diabetes and Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is going to cost Medicare $1 trillion a year within a decade if we don't find something to slow it down or cure it. So that's why, what President Biden has now done, and he called Diana DeGette. She was my partner, Democrat from Denver, and we're partnering again on another version of 21st Century Cures. It's really exciting what we're going to likely do. But this president's legacy will be that we're going to develop even more money for research called ARPA-H, very much like what the Defense Department did with the internet and everything else. This will be designated solely to healthcare. That's what the H stands for. Work within the NIH and the FDA and really, hopefully with what we would call lightning speed, really even faster, find cures for these diseases that, let's face it, plague every single family. But, COVID's not at bay. We need to get the vaccine. We need to do all these different things. And we, as we look this week again at some of these countries around the world that are going back to lockdown with hundreds of thousands of cases, we don't want to be on that page, which is why it's important that we all individually take those steps as a precaution, not only for our family and neighbors, but just to try to put this thing at bay.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And ton of great information there, and I kind of want to unpack that a little bit because you kind of touched on a few other areas that I want to go down. And one of the things you really talked about or focused on was research, right? And so we know, with the pandemic and everything happening, research has really slowed down, and clinical trials have slowed down. And I know that there's a proposal out there for a $10.1 billion infusion investment into the NIH. Is that something that you would support in terms of trying to jumpstart our research and clinical trial efforts again here in the U.S.?
Well, absolutely, and that's actually going to be part of our proposal. So Diana DeGette and myself, we're working on we're calling it 2.0, Cures 2.0.
Great.
And it'll involve more money for research. So let's just think about this last year.
Yep.
So many, a lot of the research, whether it's been done by pharmaceutical companies or university researchers, and, we've got some wonderful ones here in Michigan, as you think about the University of Michigan and Michigan State and other Harvard and MD Anderson and Cleveland Clinic and all the Mayo Clinic. It's just amazing. For a lot of these research facilities, they had to shut down last year. Remember, we had a shutdown. You couldn't go to work.
Yeah.
So, I say with a little bit of a smile, but it's sad. The mice died. All those trials, they just stopped.
Yeah.
There was no one going in to check on this stuff, and research just stopped, and it's got to be started over again. So, particularly on the university side, it's like the gas been coming up for air. We need help. And we're going to try to step on the gas again and get that research started and finished. But we also know that it's life and death. It's life and death. All these diseases, it's life and death. And so we've got to get more money for research. That's something that's always been bipartisan. All my days, I got to say that, I've been in Congress a few years, as some would say, but I can remember working with John McCain. John and I were the two Republican leads to double the money for health research for the NIH back in '96, I want to say it was. And we were successful.
Yeah.
But since then, it's been somewhat flat, hasn't kept up with inflation, which is why our Cures legislation that Obama signed, we actually increased NIH research by $45 billion over a 10-year span above the baseline that it had been on. And Biden, as vice president, was extremely helpful, I got to say. We included the Beau Biden $1 billion. That's when $1 billion is $1 billion as you look at money today.
Yeah. But
it was $1 billion research arm for cancer, named after his son, who, of course, died of a brain tumor.
Yeah.
But Biden was enormously helpful. And, I don't know that we would have gotten the bill to President Obama to sign without Biden's personal help along the way. And we needed every day to get it done. Now that he is in the White House as president, he again is reaching out. This is an issue that he wants to be part of his legacy. And we're going to be seeing a significant increase, I think, as we look to do the budget in Cures 2.0 for more medical research, which, cancer will be a recipient of, but several other diseases that we all know about, and just, particularly these childhood cancers and rare diseases that have so far defied a cure.
Yeah. Well, I know when Cures came around the first time, we were super excited about what that really meant for cancer patients. And it's exciting to hear that 2.0 is in the works. Kind of what is your timeline in terms of as this all moves forward? Because, we know the president came out and in his speech to all of you to essentially, say that, we need to end cancer and we have the ability to do it. Let's do it now. What does that timeline look like for you for 2.0 and as we kind of move forward here in this mission?
Well, COVID put us on a delay. Congress has been different the last year. We've not been, whether it be voting or committee hearings, you can imagine, seeing constituents, all those things that remarkably changed the last year. And frankly, I've had two Republican colleagues die of COVID just in the last couple of months. So things have changed quite a bit, but DeGette and I started this about 2 years ago. We were hoping that we'd be further along by now, but we're back on track. In fact, this week we are going to be sitting down in person as Congress is back in session and talk about where we are. We've gotten hundreds of comments from folks. We put out this is really a job of listening. What can we do to help? What can the two of us do to help move the ball forward? Mm-hmm. And that's why we've been listening to experts. Whether the health researchers, we've sat down with the FDA, with the NIH, a number of different universities and others. Tell us what we missed. Tell us 5 years later what we can do today that we didn't know back then, that we can make your job easier to find a cure. As you think about broadband, as you think, I talked to a big medical group not too long ago, and it was like, Fred, we are so grateful for the internet, to be able to talk to our patients online instead of having them come to these hotspots. I remember talking to a doctor in the Bronx, and she said, "Oh, I'm so glad people don't have to come here for me to see them." How can we use these tools to really help find the answer to these? So this week, DeGette and I are going to sit down. We've got some legislative language that I think is going to be ready from some of the hundreds of comments that we've gotten. Obviously, we've sat down with the president in the Oval Office. We had a really good meeting with him as he called us in. And of course, one of his ideas is a real new shot in the arm, this ARPA-H, a whole new investment arm involving billions of dollars to again, jumpstart the research that's been on the table for the last year or so that we can find these cures faster. I mean, whether it be testing, and again, this was one of the things that was in our these COVID bills the last year, trillions of dollars, whether it's helping with the PPE, the personal protection equipment, or the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Plan, which literally ended up being about $1 trillion helping our small businesses. But just the money that we invested into testing so that you could get that rapid test and the result within a day with that nasal swipe. And, as we look at sports venues opening up and workplaces opening up, people want to know that their colleagues are safe. And so not only the vaccine, but at some point we know it's going to run out. So the time span is going to run out, which is why we're working on the next vaccine. So that research has got to be there. But you want to know that, whether you're going to the barber shop or to the office or the post office or the grocery store, hopefully folks around you don't have symptoms and aren't spreading it. And we're going to ultimately have that same day test available literally maybe within a half hour, 30-minute test. That you're going to be able to do at your house. And that's all research that's been pumped in because of the COVID packages that have been adopted over the last year. The NIH literally set this thing up in a weekend. I mean, Francis Collins, who I know pretty well, actually he was a former professor at Michigan, but he's been tapped. He's worked under a number of different administrations. He's terrific. And they're really on the cutting edge, and they'll be helpful again as we look at this 2.0 legislation. So when you talk about the time frame, I'd like to think that before the end of the month, we're going to have a pretty good proposal that we'll have some boundaries on, a pretty good framework, and we can begin to then move it through the Congress, again in a very bipartisan way, and ultimately to President Biden's desk.
Oh, that's so exciting. And, please feel free to share with us anything you have and how we can be helpful in that effort. We know that the pandemic has, really taken a wallop on folks facing cancer, whether they've kind of stopped their treatments, whether they've stopped screening, things of that nature. It's legislation like this and efforts like this that really kind of, really put a shot in the arm in terms of our efforts in fighting this deadly disease. So thank you for that.
And I think if people go to my website, I'll check with my staff, but my website is upton.house.gov. Pretty easy to remember.
Okay.
upton.house.gov. Kate Upton is my niece, so you can remember it that way. But I think if you go to that website, there should be a link where you can see our latest concept paper. It's about 12 pages long. If a layperson can understand it pretty well. But I'll make sure that we continue to update that for people to see exactly where we are. And, this is exciting. We want to get it done. As you referenced, the president talked about it in his message in his joint session speech this last week. And we're pushing the go button.
Good. Well, that's great. As you can see here on our screen, go ahead for more information on Cures 2.0. Head to upton.house.gov to go ahead and find information about that. Fred, it's, as we kind of move into the spring and summer now, we celebrate a lot of things in May. And but one of my favorite days, and I think one of the favorite things we like to talk about on the show a little bit, is food. And that both Ashley and I are big foodies and enjoy cooking. And actually, National Apple Pie Day is during May. And so just kind of, a little off the cuff for our listeners here, but are you a fan of pie? What's your favorite dessert? If you were to get a slice of pie, what slice of pie would you be getting?
Well, a couple things. I love pie. In fact, my wife knows that when my birthday comes, I'd rather have pie than cake because I can't turn away from pie.
We've set that record.
I'll confess my favorite is cherry.
Okay.
But I probably should say blueberry because I have the two largest blueberry producing counties in the nation over here in West Michigan. And I like blueberry pie a lot, but I really, I'm being honest with my answer. I like cherry pie better. But I like, blueberry and apple. Yeah. And I'm actually introducing a bill for blueberries a little bit later when they're due. So this is apple pie month, but there'll be a blueberry one come July when they get ready. But I love pies, and it's and not cake. So anyway, that's who I am.
Well, we'll have to pass that along to your colleague, General Jack, up in the first. I'm sure he's got a few cherries that you could send.
Oh, we have some good cherries down here too. Now, you've got Traverse City, and I kid my colleagues, particularly from the East. Susan Collins, the senator from Maine, and go, my wife's family originally has roots there, and we've been to Maine to see her relatives, but they're small and sour. Over here in Michigan, they're large and sweet. So my blueberry guys do a really good job. She doesn't like that when I taint her with that charge.
Well, now I know. I got to go down to get a blueberry pie down.
They're good.
Down to Michigan 6th.
Yep.
So, well, again, joining us today, Congressman Fred Upton. Fred, thank you so much for taking some time with us today. We really do appreciate it.
Yep, and I'm just sorry about the technical difficulties we had with the video, but look forward to being with you again. And it's an issue that we all care about. This is not a Republican or Democratic issue. This is an issue that affects the world, and we're driven to get it done.
Yep. No, absolutely. I think a big amen from everyone here on that. So thank you again so much. We really do appreciate it, and we do look forward to having you back because we want to hear about all the great things happening with 2.0 and everything else kind of moving ahead. So again, thanks so much.
You bet. Have a great week.
Yep, you too. Again, that was Congressman Fred Upton joining us here for the Connection. Ashley, what a great interview. Man, it's like he's got a lot going.
He really does. And, it's just so great to hear from someone who has their hand on the pulse of what's emerging, but also what was. He has just this breadth of knowledge when it comes to the cancer space and research and what what has been done, but also what needs to be done. And so I think that we should all applaud the fact that he didn't just leave, the first bill on the table and call it good. He seems to be and has shown to be, very committed to advancing this and keep us moving forward in this fight.
Yeah. So, but it sounds like a lot more exciting things to come, and it's great that we'll hopefully have him back on, and hopefully we'll be able to get him on a video too. So, but with that wraps up our show for May. A lot happening, but a lot more to come as we kind of look towards June and hopefully some action with the budget and whatnot. But we're excited for what June has to bring and kind of moving into the summer.
That's right. Thank you so much for joining us in May.
Yep. Have a good one. We'll see you in June.